Good evening, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. I hope you guys are doing well. It's been a relatively active day, but all things considered, it could have been a lot worse. We've had a handful of tornado reports, but not a whole lot going on with that. There's also a little bit to cover here with the snow. I've been meaning to cover that over the last couple of days, but this, like I said, the forecast for this severe event was driving me nuts. I'm not going to lie. So we will be talking about the snowfall that did happen over the last 72 hours, to say the least. Almost a way of apologizing to anyone over in those viewing areas. If so, I mean, like I said, I'm sorry. Just kind of got carried away. I'm always a bit of a severe, I'm always like, I don't know what to say. I guess I've always liked severe weather the most, or studying severe weather more than any of the other aspects of weather. So I just kind of nerd out a bit when it comes to that. But that being said, let's go ahead and look at what we have going on with the severe weather right now. 2 tornado watches in effect, now downgraded to a slight risk. The severe threat is diminishing and the flood threat is increasing as we head later into the evening. Once this line of storms reaches Birmingham, which it has at this point, the severe threat diminishes pretty significantly, I would say. But we'll still keep an eye on things because there is still a marginal risk, and it goes past cities like Columbus, Atlanta, maybe even heading into Macon. And then there's, I think, anywhere further up north, we just didn't really get much of anything. There was a big pool of rain that came in earlier in the day, and it just kind of took away a lot of the instability that we would have needed for the severe weather here. So a lot of areas across Ohio and Kentucky, Indiana, you guys got spared, thankfully. So that being said, it hasn't been a super active day. Again, 3 tornado reports, 17 wind reports, and 6 hail reports. For an it's a underperforming enhanced risk, but it was a tricky forecast from the get-go. So this was always a possibility. When you have questions with a lot of the dynamics like we did here, then it's really no shock. But all the tornado reports, however, as of now, they are in Mississippi. I think I heard rumor of a couple of tornado reports in Tennessee. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But as of right now, when we look at things across the board, you have tornado watches, but no tornado warnings. And I don't even really, I might see maybe one little small severe thunderstorm warning right here. So that being said, things are winding down quite nicely. We'll still have a lot of rain, plenty of rumbles of thunder across the southeast tonight, but I think the worst of the severe threat is over. That being said, we also have to keep an eye on this wintry threat, as there's still some snow falling up north here towards Chicago, over towards Michigan. I think we've already started to get past the snow at this point for you guys too. No, there's still a little bit falling. We'll keep an eye on the tail end of this little snow band here and see what's going on with that in a minute. See just where we're heading with that as we head into the overnight hours and who could be next in line. So one other thing that I didn't really talk about much with this severe event also is the flood threat. There is a slight risk issued across the Appalachian Mountain Corridor, across a good portion of the southeast tonight. So we will have to watch as this storm system starts to fall apart. The rain threat will be on the rise here. So areas like Birmingham will be watching you for the threat of flooding, Knoxville, all the way up through eastern Kentucky, into Charleston, maybe even into Charleston, West Virginia here. We have to watch you guys for an increased threat of flooding. So all of you guys, just make sure you're taking your proper precautions for flooding. If you can't see where the road, if you see standing water on the road, you can't see where the road is, just don't drive through it. That's really the best thing you can do at this point. Thankfully, by tomorrow, we do not have a flood threat of any kind or a threat of excessive rainfall. So that being said, let's go ahead and also take a look at what we've had happen over the last 3 days, because there's a lot that I didn't get to talk about here. So for starters, that storm system, before it became a big severe threat, dropped a boatload of snow across the western half of the country, especially over towards the Rockies, especially towards areas west of Denver. Towards the highest of elevations, we were looking at maybe 3 feet of snow, very immense snowstorm. And then even towards areas like northern New Mexico and parts of Arizona, we were seeing over a foot of snow in a lot of places. Some of these corridors here also got up to about 2 to 3 feet of snow, which is crazy. Of course, towards the mountain peaks around the northwest, we were getting some pretty good snow there as well. It's been a very good year as far as snowfall is concerned. Hopefully it helped put a pretty good dent in the drought. If there's anything that's been good about that trend, there it is right there for sure. And as we watch this storm system roll on, we watch this start to dump moderate to heavy snow across areas east of the mountains. Denver, you guys got up to about 6 inches of snow according to the snowfall amounts here. And there's a nice little corridor that stretches all the way to the east of Denver, from the east of Denver all the way into western Kansas, where we got up to about 6 to 8 inches. Then we see another bullseye over here where we have areas like Lincoln getting up to about 6 to 8 inches, possibly. Locally, higher totals possible there too. Kansas-Nebraska line is a pretty big spot there too. The latest snow totals from areas like Iowa, Wisconsin, and of course Chicago, they have not come in yet. We'll probably see those in the morning. We'll see what happens with that. I don't think I'll be able to get a video up in time then, because it'll be 7. It'll be time for me to head to work then. But I might make a post about it to kind of make sure I'm covering my ends there. I just kind of let things get past me this time. Again, do apologize humbly for that. But that's what the snowfall threat is for these areas right now. Let's go ahead and now take a look at the HRRR and get an idea of what's ahead here. So this is the 23Z1 run. I think the OOZ run's coming in right now, but we're still waiting on that to load, so we're just going to work with this. But this is what we're dealing with now. Severe threat's pretty much over across the southeast. Flood threat is mainly with this corridor right here, simply because, I mean, just look at how much rainfall is going to be hanging over the same areas all throughout the night here, especially across this corridor here. These storms are practically going to be doing what's called training. So as a result, the flood threat is going to go up. Well, not astronomically, but it's definitely a present flood threat for sure. So that being said, we'll watch this roll on. You'll see the training motion occurring. By this point also, the snow is going to be moving north of the border. There's still a decent snow shield across areas like Chicago as we head into the overnight hours. But by morning, the snow will be cleared out, and we'll be left with a pretty dramatically cooler day for a large portion of the eastern half of the U.S. There is some chance that we get a few flurries, some ice towards some areas right on the border here towards Lake Erie and Ontario. Maine, of course, we have a chance of snow, given how cold it always tends to be over there. It's an interesting little slot here where we see a potential for ice, but there's not much accumulation expected with it, not even noteworthy enough to go over at this time. But anywhere in the lower elevations across the Adirondacks, we'll have to watch for a little bit of freezing rain, but this isn't going to end up really being too much of a big deal for you guys. And then, of course, as we get into Friday afternoon, this front will be just about out of here at this point, and we'll just have the cold temperatures to deal with across a large portion of the east here. So we'll see what happens beyond that point, just how cold the temperatures get. Waiting on this to load. It's the first time this is loaded kind of slow. But you can look and see right now just what our situation is. And you can see that we still have a pretty abundant warm sector right here across the eastern half of the country. But as we get into the overnight, you can see that front right here. You can see the contrast. You can see the 60s and the 70s, and then right behind this front here come the 40s and 30s. By the time we get into Friday morning, we can see that this front has entered into the southeast here. We have areas like Birmingham now sitting at 40 degrees, and the temperature is actually going to be progressively dropping throughout the day. So we would go from 40 to 37 before we even get to noon across this region. And then across the rest of the southeast, the temperatures will be progressively dropping throughout the day. Any areas over towards Iowa and any areas further to the northeast, whatever snow you've had falling, it's going to remain there because we're going to be dealing with temperatures in the teens. We might get up to about the 30s for some of you guys throughout the course of the day. and but from that point on, really, it's just going to be bitterly cold across that region. Dang, hate that I don't have any more model data at this point. Just working with what I have. But that's what we have going on with that. Another thing to look at is to take a look at the snow totals over the next 24 hours. We'll go ahead and take a peek at that and just call it from this point. All right, so here we are looking at the snowfall totals. We're doing our model comparison here. Most of the snow is, of course, going to be a little bit more so based around central Michigan. And really, for the most part, I think all of this has started to fall at this point. So we're now looking more so north of the border for the heavier snow totals, as we can see here. But as we move a little bit further to the east here, could be some pretty big time snow towards northern Maine, where we could get up to about a foot and even beyond. Throughout most of the state of Maine, there's pretty good potential for snow. But across areas like New York, there's a widespread area where we could see up to about an inch. Small pocket over here as we head closer towards the Adirondacks, where we could see up to about maybe a couple inches, maybe a little bit more in the higher elevations. But for the most part, that's really it. There's not even any snow in the west at this time. There's a tiny little bit that develops over here towards the mountains, where we could get a quick burst up to about maybe 4 or 5 inches. It's another storm system that we'll be talking about over there as we head into the beginning of next week and into the weekend. But that, of course, will be for another video. But that was the Euro that we were looking at. Make our comparison with the other models. It's really not that much different. I mean, it's 24 hours out at this point. So in reality, there shouldn't be too much deviance between the models. At least that's what you would hope. So there's a Canadian. There's us taking a look at the Canadian, the GFS. The HRRR doing an interesting thing that I'm not sure I'm sold on, is the fact that it has some of this blowing a little bit further to the south here. But I think the moisture is way too far to the north and way too far ahead of the cold for this outcome to happen here. We look at the NAM and the NAM 3 kilometer. Oh, the convective model, all the convective models are doing this. It's weird. I'm not sure if that really is going to end up coming to fruition, but okay, we'll go with that. We'll keep an eye on things and see what it looks like. But for the most part, I think, like I said before, the heaviest snow can be expected across this corridor right here. Yep, that's what we can expect over the course of the overnight, and then of course maybe over towards, let's say, I gotta change the pin, but over towards this region here, I almost got it perfect, but over towards this region here, we could expect some greater snowfall totals. But that's the end of this video here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, of course, you already know what to do. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Also, get that bell on too. Get notifications on whenever I post. Algorithm's down a little bit, so definitely make sure when you click that bell that you have the notifications set to all. But other than that, appreciate you guys being here. It's been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care and have a good night.